Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in aecworks.everse.com and at all of our Everse social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Trailblazers podcast, where we interview amazing people from the AEC. Today here we have Libo. Uh, Libo, say hi.
Hi, I'm Libo.
So let me give you a little bit of background on Libo. He's first of all, he's such a nice person. Everybody knows Libo in the industry. He's an architect. He's a really good coder. He has a great imagination. He loves plants as well.
I do love plants.
and he has been working in the past on amazing companies like WeWork, Apple, Voyansi, Meta now. So you have such a nice career.
I guess I wouldn't say nice. Not your typical career, probably. But it's definitely been a fun adventure for sure.
True. And let's kick this off with telling everybody where we are. Like, we're actually at the WeWork, and I was asking questions on Libo on how he felt about this and his early days. And does this place bring you memories?
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's nice to be back. It's nice to be in a nice two-person conference room. But I think my WeWork experience was very transformational in terms of where I was and where I am now. So I think, seeing the uh, office, seeing the storefronts, seeing how you can't get access with your key card, brings back a lot of really good memories.
That's so cool. And but your journey didn't start with WeWork. What you were doing previous to WeWork? Like, you were an architect. How did you decide to become an architect?
So, when I was younger, my uncle was an architect, and over the holidays, well, I was born in China. So, in China, like, you get together for Chinese New Year. My uncle would always bring really fun toys, and I really liked to kind of build my hands when I was little. So when I applied to college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I applied for a bunch of different things. Luckily, I got into Rice's architecture program, which at that time was, I think, first or second in the country. So as a child of Asian parents, naturally you go to the best thing you got into. So that's how I got into architecture school. I think once I got there, I ended up really loving it. I really loved the way that it helped shape the way you think. It really helped uh, guide you towards a way to shape your thoughts and critique yourself in towards this way of understanding something, but also a way to start with a seed of an idea and then continue to refine it until you get to something with a coherent narrative, something that's presentable, something that's somewhat of a complete work.
Yeah, I think that we don't all the people that have started working on technology and have architectural backgrounds. It's amazing that it's such a perfect match, because the way it allows you to think, it's not only allows you to think engineering stuff, but also like abstract creative stuff, work on a project, work with other people. It gives you such amazing tools that you can apply in any other industry. So it's cool. And then after you studied architecture, you started working as an architect.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. So I started working as an architect. I worked at KPF in London and New York, working on a bunch of different projects. So worked on a casino, worked on residential, worked on office. Then I worked at a small firm called Kaza, just actually here in Dumbo. Did things like urban design, did publications, did public transit, did interiors. So kind of ran the gamut in terms of early schematic design, I would say.
like I guess that you trying many different things. It's not only now part of your life, but it has always been trying all different kind of buildings. And uh, but you were working on a schematic design. How do you end up working on technology?
I think I've always had like an early interest in technology. When I first came to America, I think that was when AOL was starting to get big. One of my early, really concrete, I think, technology memories was when uh, our neighbor across the hall, they were new immigrants. I helped them install AOL, got them on Skype, and they were able to converse with their parents back home. And they just got very emotional seeing kind of their family back home for the first time in a long time. And it was now in retrospect, it was kind of that early indication of just the power of technology and how it can connect people, but also in a way completely change people's lives. That thread stayed with me throughout, I think, my early youth. I built my own computer. I played a ton of computer games like World of Warcraft, StarCraft, so on and so forth, pretty normal stuff. But I think when I got to my job, the technology side was always interesting to me. So whenever anyone was like, "Hey, we're teaching Revit. Do you want to learn Revit?" Great, like sign me up. Um, Grasshopper, right? Do you want to be the person that tries to do this thing that we're doing tedious in Grasshopper? Great, sign me up. So I was always very willing to kind of take that step forward and to learn something new. And I think those early steps really showed me, one, that it's not that hard to take those first steps, but two, that having those skills really changes the way you think about problems and how you approach design.
It's when I was hearing you, and I think it's so nice that what triggered you to start on this path was such a nice memory as technology connecting people. Typically nowadays it's like every time we speak about technology,
Mhm.
everybody says, "Oh, this is going to conquer the world. AI is going to conquer all of us," or VR. We're going to be all the day with the glasses and don't have any connection to real life. So it's so good to also find those like nice memories and nice ways of using technology.
Mhm.
And by the way, you I know, and I know it's truth, but you say, well, they told me about learning Grasshopper, and I was like, yeah, sign me up. And for you, it's easy, but generally, when I was starting, like using Dynamo Grasshopper was incredibly hard. It's not as easy. I don't know if that was the case for you. You're super smart, so maybe it
No,
was
no,
like
no.
a walk in the park.
No, no. I guess I'm a masochist for torture. But also, I feel I find that there's two things, I think. One, there's in the industry kind of a culture of rejection of technology. I think when I was working at KPF, this is something I saw really visibly. It's that the generation of architects that were brought up with CAD and they were very skilled in CAD very much rejected that transition to Revit. Right? They're like, we're architects. We already know CAD. Why do we have to learn Revit when it's not as productive or not as what we're used to? And it's in a way that kind of a trapping of the software. Like your skills in one software doesn't translate, and therefore it kind of makes you feel like all this time you invested in one thing is now worthless because the world's
Yeah.
moving to another thing, and it's terrible. But I think the other thing is that there is this wall that sometimes you hit when you learn something, and for me, breaking past that wall and kind of looking back, that's some of my favorite moments, is like climbing this hard cliff knowing that you'll get somewhere. But I think as I taught other people software, or as I've seen other people kind of self-learn certain things, a lot of people kind of stop at the wall. They're like, okay, well, like I'm not going to get past this without some serious investment. Why am I going to invest that time? And it's fair, right? You're a designer, you're an architect, you're not a BIM developer, so why become a Revit expert? Right?
True. No, and I do relate with that. I remember when me and my CTO and me, we used to meet when we didn't even know how to code. We tried to learn how to code. It was like an A meeting. It was
Mhm.
like so depressing. Like I did a variable or I did stuff that was not adding any value, and I feel it's like that. It's like suffering until one day you realize like, well, I'm at a point that I can do stuff. And that's when you start feeling more comfortable about it. But until you reach that point, it's incredible hard, for sure.
And I think, maybe I've been really lucky in a way across my experiences where I've been able to find people who are very generous with their time, who have had the skills that I'm looking to acquire, who would sit me down and look at the stuff that I did and point out all the things that are wrong. And it's very humbling, but at the same time, it's a very good way to learn because as an expert in whatever they're doing, they can see things that I just wouldn't be able to learn on my own or wouldn't even be able to find a thread to pull on.
No, true. People and getting helpful people. It's for sure something that mentors are like.
Absolutely.
I feel even more important sometimes than a company or even the technology you're trying to learn. Right? They guide you through a path. And then moving forward, after that you came to WeWork, right? How was the experience?
It was awesome. It was definitely a culture shock going from a architecture background, very hierarchical, very stiff, to WeWork, where there's previously unimagined freedoms, I would say. It's chaotic, but at the same time, it's where I think at that time was a very great concentration of people who were interested in building with technology. So I met a lot of people who had a shared passion to design and build things differently. So with the freedom combined with that passion, combined with free beer on tap, was a lot of free-flowing ideas, but also freedom to just do things. I think some of my best memories there were when you talk to someone and you have a shared problem and you're able to just commit time out of your workday to go solve it. Whether that's someone in your office in New York or someone, all the way across the ocean in Singapore, if you have a shared problem, you can connect on Slack, talk about it, and just commit your time to solve it together.
True. And I feel that for sure there are a lot of people who think that WeWork was something that like it was just company. It was not a good company or whatever. But aside from that, it's just personal opinion of some people. I feel that a lot of companies were born after WeWork, like Speckle, Canoa, and still every day I hear new companies that or like so many profiles that got out of WeWork, and they were like it was the place where amazing minds got together, and then they started creating really cool stuff that we see nowadays in the industry. So I feel that we need to thank WeWork for that, at least for bringing amazing minds and cultivating new people.
Well, definitely send your thank you letter to Adam Newman. I'm sure he would appreciate it. But no, you're absolutely right. I think it, one, not only brought us together, but two, allowed us to work together instead of like splitting us up into a lot of different teams, like some companies probably will do. At the same time, it shattered our beliefs on what was kind of the limits of what we can do. And I think that's really important. It gave us this confidence to try things, to move things forward that I think if, for me personally, if I had stayed in traditional architecture, that I wouldn't even try to break those walls. Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And by the way, for everybody that's listening to us, WeWork is not sponsoring this. We have to pay for this room ourselves. But Adam, if you see this, we're open to sponsors for sure.
Yeah, please sponsor this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be amazing, Adam. Don't be cheap. And then moving forward, like we spoke about it, the great experience on WeWork. After that, and I know you were a brief time you were working at Voyansi, and that's where we started connecting at that hackathon in New York. I think it was right here in New York, right?
Yeah. So I think at that time, I was still working at WeWork.
Oh, at that time you're still working.
Yeah. So Voyansi came a little bit later.
I remember when I met you. We were in the hackathon, and you were doing this Dynamo node to for delivery pizza. It was like it was so much fun for sure.
Yeah, I think that was in a way our approach. Jared, who a very good friend of mine, you should get him on the podcast. He would be very fun to kind of have a conversation with, I'm sure. I think if you look at BIM hackathons, it's people don't have enough fun, right? Everyone's like
Sure.
trying to do things that change an industry, so on and so forth. But what if you just tried to order pizza through Dynamo, right? It could work. It might have non-commercial uses, but it's just fun. And I think that's also something that I learned at WeWork, and now I think transitioning more into a tech role that I feel that in a way our industry is missing a little bit is that ability to make fun of yourself and ability to kind of like just have more fun with what you're doing.
True. I feel that comes with the profession, right? As an architect, it's like we cannot make mistakes. We have to be on time. We have to work a lot of hours. We have to get a little bit of money. You have to put effort into it. It's like it's so tough, and you can work hard, but it still can be fun. So,
Right.
Thanks for that amazing dynamo. Now I can bring pizza directly from my Revit.
Well, when you're working hard late at night and you don't have time to order pizza.
True. I don't even have to open my phone. It's just directly from Revit. So then, moving a little bit forward, Voyansi and then KatalystDI, where we work together. I don't know if you can give us a little bit about the experience. How was that?
Yeah.
What
Yes.
we're doing.
Yeah. So at Catalyst, what we're trying to do was build a data platform to connect and understand construction supply chains. So Catalyst started, I think, in 2021, right at the peak of the whole supply chain crisis in construction. I think the two major motivators was one, especially in large programs where there was many projects going on, there should be an ability to surface more of that information and compare across projects. So if you were, say, at the construction phase of one project, that information is very informative if you're doing the design phase of the next project, so on and so forth. It's something that we saw a lot of at WeWork, but it's something that it doesn't even matter if you're building offices or not, right? That's something that's pretty transferable across the industry. And I think the second part was a trend in the industry to prefabricate and kind of modularize components of construction. So how do you make the decision of whether this generator package or say this conference room is something you should prefabricate and store so that when you're building it, you have it right there, or you get the supplies in construction and hope that they reliably show up on site, right? So it's these kind of high level decisions that we were trying to build something to aggregate all the data to understand.
Oh, and I think it's such a hard problem to solve, but it's really important at the same time. Like if it's a problem that all the job sites, all the projects have around the U.S. and the world as well. So things don't get in time. There are always delays. It's hard to purchase stuff. It's hard to like prefab. It's so massive that at the time when I heard it, it was like, oh, it is amazing, but it's so hard at the same time. Like, who were your main clients, or who were the main clients you were targeting at the time?
So our founder came from the data center industry. So our clients were mostly hyperscalers building lots of data centers. And data centers as a typology is very conducive to this way of working. It's very componentized. There's not a lot of variation. Unlike office, you don't really want people in a data center, and that kind of makes things a lot simpler. And because everything is so high cost and time in a way is money for data centers, it's much simpler to make that equation of like, hey, do we prefab, do we kind of modularize this, or do we not?
That makes sense. And what was the reaction to potential clients? Like, it was easy for you to get potential clients. It was not. How was the?
It was very tough, I would say. I think there were two major learnings for me. I think one, I came into it under the assumption that the data maturity of these teams, especially at these large companies, the usual suspects, who are, the giants in the software world, would have the sophistication in their construction process to either already have a lot of this data or already working at this level. And it was kind of a reality check to see that they weren't. So that made it very hard to have something to connect to, right? So we, in a way, had to try to bring them up to this level of operation. I think the second part is that while people like to say they love technology, they don't want technology to disrupt too much of what is already the status quo. So you have to ride this fine balance of, we want to digitize some aspect of what you're doing, but not do it so much that it collapses the existing kind of value structure that you want to maintain in whatever process that you're running.
I have worked with those type of companies as well on BIM processes and
Mhm.
automation, and it's crazy because it's like you said, it's like you imagine like these technology companies are gonna be like all the technology they apply to the products will be applied to infrastructure, but it is not.
Mhm.
It's just separate, complete world under the same company.
Mhm.
And also the fact that bringing change it's hard. We would Nobody wants to change.
Right.
Change is hard. Or if you want to change, you want to do it on your own rules. Like you
Right.
want somebody to come and say you have to do it this way. So I feel it's a common denominator in our industry. It's like even our industry is affecting like technology companies. So
Right.
it's such a thing that, well, I feel that it's gonna hopefully change in the coming years.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's no knock, I think, on anybody who's building in these companies, but they're not the priority, so to speak, right? They're not the revenue driver of the company. They're a cost center. So I don't know if they're actually getting the attention and the resources that they need to bring their operations up to this level. And unless you have someone there who understands how to move the whole organization forward and advocate in front of leadership in that direction, then I imagine it's also very hard for them, this regardless of how much desire there is to kind of change the way that things are operating.
That makes sense. And you as a leader, when you were working at Catalyst, did you what were the lessons learned that you feel? What were the most tough aspects? It was, like you said, trying to sell the idea to its people. It was technology. It was processes. What do you feel it was the hardest part of uh, leading the part there?
So there's a lot of hard parts. I think fundamentally for me, it was a very humbling experience. It was, my second time in like a leadership role. It was a time where I tried a lot of processes, tried a lot of things to, one, build good culture, but two, grow a team that we might have grown too fast. So it was a lot of lessons learned at each increment of our growth. I don't, in retrospect, I don't think I did an amazing job managing. I think I did okay. But throughout that process, I learned a lot about bringing together people, especially people from very opposing cultures, so to speak. I learned a lot about how you take a big idea and you try to create agreement among a whole group of people towards that idea, but also create enough room within that idea for you to bring the best ideas from everyone in order to achieve that mission.
That that's that makes sense, and also it's super hard because you have to do that, but at the same time, make sure that there's a market fit for it, and
Mhm.
there is the way of selling it. Even if there is a market fit, you have to sell it and have to convince potential clients. So
Mhm.
it is hard. What let's say that there are other in the audience, there are other like young
Yeah.
Libos that are like maybe BDCs or computational designers that
Mhm.
are stepping into a role of, like you did, like a CTO of a startup, technology startup, which is a completely different world.
Right.
Where are the suggestions or the best practices that you will tell them?
Read a lot. There's reasons why there's very popular like blog posts, very popular books in the industry. The books people recommend you to read, just read them. And take the advice. Don't be like us. We read a lot, but we didn't take a lot of that advice. Things like don't scale too fast. Things like the first version of your product should be something that you're totally embarrassed by. Um, Things like listen to your customers. So a lot of those things, I feel you just read and you apply them, right? There's a reason why there are these, I guess, wise sayings in the startup industry that you should just follow. And when you follow them, try them out and then see if they work for you. I think that's really the way to do it. If you don't try them, you don't know whether or not they're going to work, and you're going to do things the way that you've always done it. And I think at Catalyst, that was one of the things that contributed to our lack of success is doing the things that we've always done things instead of absorbing, trying, failing, and learning from everybody else. Yeah.
No, I agree, but I also feel it's hard. What I always do, I like to compare to daily life, right?
Mhm.
It's like everybody tells you you have to work out, you have to eat well, you
Yeah.
have to. And for that, it's not that you don't want to do it. It's that sometimes like you have other things to do, or you need discipline, or
Mhm.
like the same happens even myself when I'm like creating products. It's so tempting to say, "Oh, let's add these couple of features that
Right.
no client asked me to, but I like those features."
Yeah.
And like it's just gonna be 2 or 3 hours, and then those 2 or 3 hours leads
Mhm.
to 2 or 3 days, and then 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 months, and then suddenly you're in a rabbit hole
Mhm.
just following a product that you only like and not
Right.
your clients. So it's sounds like whoa, that's so stupid. But when you are producing a product, yes,
But I think in a way that's okay. The important thing is, to me, you can't lie to yourself about it. You can't say I like this. You can't think like I like this feature and tell everyone, hey, customers want this, right? Like you just have to be very clear, like, hey, like this is something for me. Um, I want to build this, and we should commit the time to build it, and that should be fine, right? But at the same time, it's going to be very, very clear to the team and very detrimental if you take something that you want and you wrap it in this guise of like, hey, what I want is what the customer wants, and you have the team build it, right?
yeah, that would be terrible. You know? But yeah, it's hard for sure.
Mhm.
And I guess nobody tells you what to do on each moment, right? It's like
Mhm.
uh you cannot, you can have mentors, you can ask other people, but uh people are gonna have different opinions. Which opinion you follow?
Mhm.
I feel it's hard also because you feel lonely, and there is another manual, and even there are good books, but these are books that are applied to general cases, not to your specific case. I don't know
Mhm.
if you felt that way as well.
There's no specific manual for your situation, so it might not apply. And I think in a way that is a thinking fallacy that is very easy to crawl into, where you read something about your situation and it tells you to do something that you don't want to do, or it's very hard for you to do. So it's very easy for you to think, well, this is written for XY company. It probably doesn't apply to my situation, so I don't need to do it. That's a very natural reaction, but at the same time, if you do that over and over and over again, then you're really not learning anything from the wealth of resources that are now available to, founders or leaders. Um, for me, I think just take the advice, do the hard thing, and if it doesn't work, then right? Don't
No,
reject the advice at face value because you feel like you don't want to take it.
Yeah. Yeah. True. So hard, but true. Well, this has been amazing, and we have shared. You have shared with us so much knowledge on different companies and lesson learned on a leadership role. To wrap it up, I'm gonna make you a couple of ping pong questions.
Let's do it.
Say the first thing that comes to your mind. Let's start with the first one. What's the best software out there in the industry?
Revit.
Okay.
Sorry, it might not be a
Hey,
popular
hey,
answer, but
you could
it's
just say
the hard
that
truth.
The Dynamo know that, like, they can ask for pizza, so you could have said that. The best. Which is your favorite building, and have you ever visited?
My favorite building, I think, is the Gherkin in London, and I did when I was working there.
Oh, that's cool. If you could collaborate with someone, and you can take anybody in the whole history, who would you choose and why?
Probably I would have to say Musk. I think I wouldn't even be a collaboration. I think I would just like maybe stand in the corner and just watch what happens. But I think it'll be a insightful sort of learning experience into someone who I think willed two transformational companies into existence.
That's interesting for sure. Okay, that will be all for today. Thanks very much, Libo, for being here and sharing all that wisdom with us.
Thank you. This was really fun.
Yeah.
Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in ascworks.evers.com and at all of our Evers social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.